This is the mysterious safe a German woman found in her great-aunt's house. It looked pretty rough. She had no clue what could be so important that her great-aunt locked it up in such a serious, heavy-duty box. And with all that rust on it, she was honestly a little uneasy about what she might find inside. Her great-aunt had escaped from Russia and ended up in Hamburg sometime in the 1940s. Back then, a lot of people in Europe were trying to move anywhere they could to stay safe and avoid trouble. From the looks of it, her aunt had gone from one tough situation straight into another. At first, the niece didn't think she'd ever figure out what was inside the old metal box. It was tightly locked, and even the hinges were sealed tight. Getting it open wasn't going to be simple. But then, she found a key. Even with the key in her hand, she wasn't fully convinced it would work. The box was in bad shape, and after so many years, who knew if the key still fit? There was only one way to find out. She gave it a try, and just like that, the safe popped open. Right away, she saw a shallow tray at the top, and it was completely empty. For a second, she thought maybe this whole thing was going to be a letdown. But then, she noticed there were more sections inside. Turns out, the rest of the safe wasn't empty at all. As she started digging into the deeper compartments and hidden corners, she couldn't believe what she was seeing. The box was packed with books, old letters, and photographs. The niece was taken aback by all the pieces of her great-aunt's life sitting right there in the safe. She didn't recognize everyone in the old photos, but something about them felt familiar, like they had to be family. One thing that truly caught her off guard, though, was a copy of Mein Kampf by Adolf Hitler. The book isn't rare since it was printed a lot back then, but seeing a wartime edition gave her chills. She looked into it and learned it was printed in 1943. It might be worth around $350, but honestly, it was hard to imagine selling or even keeping something with such a disturbing past. Those pages stood for a time full of fear and destruction. She also came across a copy of Rob Roy by Sir Walter Scott. The old novel was worn and marked up, like it had been read many times. Just holding it made her feel strangely connected to whoever had first owned it. Another book called Leipzig was printed in 1846 and written in German. Unlike Hitler's book, this one was much older and had clearly traveled a long way. It touched her to think that her great-aunt had likely carried it with her through different places in Europe. There was also a German edition of Lady and the Tramp inside. Most people remember it as a classic Disney movie, but it actually started out as a children's novella. This version had a cover that matched the film release, and it was published in 1953. As she held it, she couldn't help but wonder which family member had once loved this story. There weren't any clear answers, just a sense of mystery and curiosity. She thought the little girl in one of the photos might be her grandmother, but she couldn't say for sure. Figuring out who people were back then isn't easy, especially when families were scattered by war and there were no digital records to turn to. Another photo showed her grandfather on a motorcycle around 1950. It was kind of funny. This guy on a bike, looking cool with a field of cows in the background. That image alone said a lot about what kind of person he was. There were some photos of young boys who appeared to be part of the Hitler Youth. Knowing what we know today about Nazi Germany, it's unsettling to imagine what those boys may have witnessed or gone through. At that time, being in the Hitler Youth wasn't optional, it was required for kids. One of the photos dated back to 1941 and had an official Nazi government stamp. Life under Nazi rule meant people were constantly being watched. That stamp wasn't just for mailing, it was a way of reminding everyone that the government was always keeping an eye on them. Another item was a postcard from 1916. This one was a stylized Army-issued print, meant to encourage men and women to sign up as soldiers and nurses during World War I. It didn't really look like a typical recruitment photo, it looked more like a scene from an old film. The caption at the bottom read, "A house destroyed by the enemy." Back then, with no internet or widespread radio, people relied on newspapers and these kinds of prints to learn what was happening. Images like this were often shared to get public support during the war. And here's something unexpected: Nivea cream. These little tins were still in great shape, but opening them probably wouldn't be a good idea. After sitting sealed in a box for decades, who knows what the cream inside looks like now? There was also a photo of the Kaiser from the time of World War I. Photos like this were pretty common in German households during that era. The whole safe was like a window into the past. Some parts fascinating, some parts really hard to take in. This woman isn't the only person who's ever inherited a box tied to World War II. In Maryland, another box of wartime items and old photographs was found in an attic, and the discovery kicked off a police effort to return the contents to the right family. Using clues from the suitcase, authorities traced it back to a man named Armando Castagido, born in 1908, who had moved to the U.S. and served in the Navy during World War II. Police believed that if they could find one of his relatives, they definitely want to keep this box full of memories from Armando's life. It was a powerful look back at one man's personal history. It's kind of incredible to think that something tucked away in an old attic or locked in a forgotten safe could hold the key to a whole piece of history. Finds like this give us a rare glimpse into another time and remind us how much of the past is still waiting to be discovered. If you found this story as fascinating as we did, make sure to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more surprising stories from the past. You never know what might turn up next.